Greetings. This is your friend Sarajah the Great Prophet. Well, I just used the FSD Beta program for the first time tonight, and I am very excited. Now, I have to admit that the window of opportunity is closing for what I was hoping to be the ideal situation. You see, right now, in my view, there is a race between two predictions that I have set forth. On the one hand, there is what I call the Great Tesla Prophecy, and the other is the overall economic recession that is coming. Now, before I get into those two things that involve the future, perhaps I might talk a little bit about the past. Why would you listen to anything that I have to say? Well, you can go back into my Twitter feed. It's all there. It's all public. I was the one and only person. No one in the media said this. No one in stock analysis said this. No one in finance said this. I declared early in 2020 that Tesla stock would reach over $3,000 a share in 2020. Not in 2025, not in 2030, not in someday down the line. I said specifically in 2020. Now, did that happen? Well, if you remember, there was a five-way stock split in the middle of 2020, so that $3,000 price target became $600. So did Tesla reach that? You see, at the time, I was called every insult that there was, a fool, an idiot, a fanboy, or whatever insult people's confirmation bias brought to the forefront. That was what I was called. So did it happen? Yes, it did. In fact, Tesla stock reached some $880 a share, or cumulatively almost $5,000 a share, pre-split. So that $3,000 price target actually ended up being quite conservative. Now, what made this declaration particularly implausible was that in March of 2020 began the quote-unquote coronavirus pandemic. Now, by June, I began to reiterate, even though the economy was in full recession, that Tesla would still reach $3,000 a share in 2020, or $600 a share post-split. Why was I so certain? Now, I'm not going to talk about coronavirus because it just creates too much cognitive dissonance in people and they start to foam at the mouth. So let me just put it this way. I knew for a certainty, based on my understanding of human behavior, that the coronavirus pandemic was not the society-ending calamity that it was being made out to be. In fact, it was not even close. And I publicly declared at the time that you would see the quickest economic recovery in history. And indeed, it happened. Now, there was another reason why in June 2020 I was reiterating my $3,000 price target for Tesla, which seemed impossible at the time. In my humble opinion, the greatest economists of the 20th century were Friedrich von Hayek and Milton Friedman. Now, Milton Friedman was not liked by some because he was very outspoken, and the things that he said, although truthful, did not harmonize with what they wanted to believe politically. And there were many in academia who didn't like Milton Friedman at the time because many in academia were in love with socialism. But again, I believe that Milton Friedman in particular was perhaps the most brilliant economist of the 20th century. And Milton Friedman, throughout his writings and throughout his speeches, repeated something that he said goes back throughout the history of American economics. Every time there is a dramatic or significant increase in the money supply, it creates a 2-year economic boom followed by a recession. Well, where do you think those trillions of dollars came from to send Americans checks every week to not work for years? Where do you think that money came from? All of the billions of dollars that were handed to the pharmaceutical companies for their vaccine. Where do you think that money came from? It came from an increase in the money supply. The United States simply printed more money. In fact, they didn't even print it. They just said it existed. And so I knew from that point that gasoline was about to be thrown on the fire, in terms of Tesla stock in particular. You see, Tesla had been undergoing exponential growth for years by the time we got to 2020. But the human mind struggles to understand exponential growth. But I knew with the completion of that factory in Shanghai, in China, that Tesla was able to bring about without a local partner, something no American company had ever done before. The exponential growth of Tesla in production was about to become apparent. That, coupled with the increase in the money supply, made me absolutely certain we would surpass that $3,000 or $600 post-split price target for Tesla stock in 2020. And indeed, it was. And it did. So, who cares about the past, right? Everybody wants to talk about the future. Well, what did I tell you? The history of American economics shows that this dramatic increase in the money supply, and I believe it's up to 40% of the currency that is currently floating around, was created in the last 2 years. So what happens after that 2-year economic boom, which we saw? Well, a recession follows. So there is a recession coming. So the question is, which is going to hit first? Is it going to be what I call the Great Tesla Prophecy, or is it going to be the economic recession? Well, what is the Great Tesla Prophecy, you might be asking? Well, it's in my Twitter feed, but in case you're not familiar. Humans, by and large, believe that they are governed by facts, logic, and reason. And that the more intelligent a person, the more educated they become, the greater the facts that are available to them. And so they become more rational and more logical and more reasonable. When in reality, nothing could be further from the truth. Humans operate on bias and emotion. And education and intelligence do not diminish this natural human tendency. And furthermore, those emotions and biases can be triggered by a number of invisible human behavior influences. Now, in my opinion, and again, this is just my opinion, the two most powerful of these influences is social proof and scarcity. Social proof is, peer pressure. They call it peer pressure. Or they might call it birds of a feather flock together. Or they might call it you become like those with whom you associate. Humans are heavily influenced by social proof. How you drive on a stretch of highway, or how fast you drive on a stretch of highway, is largely determined by how fast other people are driving. Say you're at a dinner party and chicken is being served. Do you pick it up and eat it with your hands, or do you use a fork and knife? Well, that decision is largely going to be made based on what people around you are doing. Social proof is what causes people to get tattoos, or to cut their hair, or to color their hair, or to get piercings, or to do their nails, or do their makeup, or whatever it is. The way you dress, everything is determined by social proof, what people around you are doing. And some people may try to disbelieve that, but the facts don't support that perspective. Now, the other very powerful influence on human behavior, in fact, more powerful than social proof in my opinion, is scarcity. Advertisers will often talk about things that are available for a limited time only, right? There's a limited supply of something because advertisers know that scarcity affects human behavior. Another term that might be used is rarity. Something that is rare is attributed greater value. A rare gem, a rare piece of jewelry, a rare piece of art, a rare baseball card. You see, anything that is rare, anything in which there is a limited supply of something, creates this scarcity bias and causes humans to do crazy things like hoard toilet paper when there's absolutely no reason to do so whatsoever. But this perception that there's a limit of something, or especially that if something is going to be taken away, something that you previously had access to that suddenly is going away, ooh, that creates in humans this deep emotional influence. So what does this have to do with Tesla stock? Well, I can tell you this. While the production of Tesla, the exponential growth of Tesla's production that took place between 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019 was visible to anyone who knew how to think, the progress of innovation, which is also exponential with Tesla, is much more invisible. I've been driving a Tesla since 2014. So I've been watching autopilot from the very beginning. And the progress that I have seen, especially after tonight driving around with the new FSD update, autonomous driving is coming. And furthermore, Tesla is the only company that's going to have it. You see, there are other companies out there, Waymo, GM Cruise, other companies that are getting a lot of press attention that are trying to achieve autonomous driving. But they are using a failing strategy. They're using a very expensive technology of LiDAR, which basically uses light waves to try to determine the things that are the obstacles that might be around it. And then they map out the streets. And so I believe GM Cruise even has begun to offer autonomous driving in a small portion of San Francisco. But here's the thing. Bats don't drive. We don't use sonar. We don't use radar. We use 2 cameras and a computer. And that biomimetic approach is the one that Tesla is using to achieve autonomous driving. As humans, we drive with 2 cameras and a computer. Tesla is using 8 cameras and a computer to bring about autonomous driving. So there are only 2 strategies. There's a strategy that everyone else is trying to follow, and then there is solely the vision-based biomimetic approach that Tesla and only Tesla is following. I'm telling you, I drove FSD Beta tonight for the first time. It's game over. This is coming, and it's going to become apparent suddenly. Overnight, Tesla stock is going to skyrocket because it's going to become apparent that only Tesla is going to have what is the greatest increase in value of an asset in history, and that is owning Tesla stock. Now, is that going to happen before or after the recession? That's the question I do not know the answer to. But I'll tell you this much. The only way I would sell my original position that I own in this company is if I saw a way of enlarging that position. And so for me, the ideal situation would be for this insane rise in the stock price to hit before the recession. Because something else that I personally believe is that when human behavior influences hit more than one at a time, when they hit simultaneously, the influence grows exponentially. And so when you see the social proof of people buying Tesla stock coupled with scarcity, that there's only so many shares available of this company that is going to have this incredible technological advancement, oh man, we're talking thousands of dollars per share. So it's exciting, very exciting. Now, again, is the recession going to hit first? I don't know. It might. If it does, I sold every other investment I had back in January, and so I'm sitting on a war chest. So whether it hits first or not, I'll just buy more. That's what's going to happen. Now, you don't have to listen to anything I have to say, and I have nothing to gain from you listening or not listening to anything I have to say. I'm just sharing my thoughts with you as I am just so very excited about what I just experienced. It's coming. Hang on with both hands and don't let go.